farther than the first row. So it was,
How's it going, everybody? I just realized I forgot to click on my intro. We're still getting used to this. But yeah, great to be here. This is game one of the finals, and we're here. I'm sitting in the press room pregame, so if you see a random person behind me at some point, it's because I couldn't find a spot that was completely against the wall. Let me know if you can't actually hear me, but I'm going to be just giving a quick update. It'll probably go like 20, 25 minutes today. So I'll be giving a quick update on kind of everything that we learned yesterday at Media Day, what we're seeing today from live from the court, and then I'll just take questions. So I think yesterday worked fine as far as taking questions. Appreciate people for joining. Super fun for me to just be able to answer people's questions and to be able to just share perspective and shed light on kind of what's going on, just being here on the ground. And yeah, sometimes I think I might have maybe a tough background or a tough time kind of connecting to things. But my point is that I'm always going to be calling in from the places where we're actually at. So whether that's shoot around, practice, media availabilities. There's a lot of other pregame, postgame shows you can tune into. So I figured I'd get started a little bit early. And official tip-off time, I see that's the first question, is 8:37 p.m. So actually not too bad, all things considered. I know normally that's a much later start. So we have a pretty early tip-off, 8:37 p.m. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. And so right now it's 5 o'clock. We're still 3.5 hours away. And I can just say, sitting in this press room, there are a ton of people here, a lot of national media, a lot of radio, local producers, TV people, camera people, like pretty much anybody that works in sports is here. So nothing like what a normal game would be covered like. And you might see there's a little bit of action behind me, just because there's so much press here. So a ton of coverage. And obviously, even at this hour, normally you wouldn't even be able to get here at this hour. Normally you only can come in 3 hours before tip-off, but today we came 4 hours before tip-off and there were already a ton of people here. And so yeah, I'll just say, feel free to continue asking questions in the chat. I realize that I get a little distracted while I'm talking by the questions, so I might miss some. So I apologize. I'm not going to read every single thing, but I'll try to catch most of them and just give you guys some perspective on where things are at. And I can just say, generally speaking, this is my first time ever covering a finals game. It's just a very exciting atmosphere here. I feel like the whole city's very excited. There's a huge Celtics kind of like flag in front of the State House, in front of City Hall, walking around. Fenway Park is, Celtics shirts, Celtics signs, just the whole city. You can really feel that it's a very palpable excitement about being in the finals and being here, and the Celtics being here. Even though they were here a couple of years ago, I think just the fact that it's been so long since they last were able to be in this position and actually win. There's this kind of like really strong excitement that you just haven't felt through the playoffs. I think during the playoffs, there's this kind of like anticipation of just getting to the finals, whereas maybe in other cities, like I hear at OKC, the whole time everybody's like thrilled to be here, right? Everybody in OKC was excited. And so, yeah, just wanted to start there. And I appreciate all the nice comments here. I'm glad people are able to tune in, and I'm glad people are appreciating the content. And this is just going to be informal. So I'm just kind of reading through these and I'll get started. So I see some questions about KP. I feel like when I get questions about things like his minutes restriction, like I actually don't know. I don't know if he's going to be on one. We haven't gotten that information. We haven't gotten that intel. So I can't really offer that up. So I would love to be able to say like, yes, there's going to be a minutes restriction, or he's going to start, he's going to come off the bench, but it's super just speculative at this point. So I think the best thing I can say is that we're probably going to guess. We're probably going to get like some version of him. So not his usual amount, not 25 minutes, 30 minutes. I would maybe guess 20, but my guess is probably as good as yours. And so that's the reality of it, is that we don't know. I don't even know if he knows. I don't know if he's been told a certain amount. I know that he's going to give it a go, and maybe he feels great and he's like, I'm good to go normal. Or maybe he's not feeling great and he ends up being pulled in the second half. Like I think everything's on the table, and that's probably the number one thing that I'm anticipating right now, is just kind of getting that. So I'm just going to move and realizing I'm in a tough spot here. Just 1 second. Just out of respect for the people behind me. Okay, yes. So I have the background to show where I am. So I have a background for when I'm at the Arabak Center, which won't be anymore this year because we're pretty much done with that this year. And then I have a background for TD Garden, and you see the little finals logo there as well. And then if I'm ever doing it from home, I'll have like a house. It won't be my room because my room's never organized, but I will have like a house or something like that. Okay. Do you think the Celtics will let PP dribble out the clock at the end of the game up by 18? That sounds good to me. As far as celebrities go, I've heard that there's going to be a lot of people here. I bet there's going to be a lot of former Celtics. I would not be shocked if throughout the series, like pretty much all the main guys you could think of will be here. I don't know if that'll be game 1 though, or if that'll be game 2, or maybe a game 5. If they're in position to close it out in game 5 or 7, I would imagine that's where there's going to be a huge influx. But again, yeah, we really just don't know at this point. General vibe in the arena, I think there's like a lot of anticipation just because it's been so long that we've been waiting for this finals game. Like it almost feels like there was like an off season. And I think that speaks to why there was so much like discourse around like, is Tatum the guy? Is he being bailed out by Jaylen Brown? Like all this, like just like the same stories over and over again. I think that just comes from like there was a 9-day break. And so the media has to find stuff to talk about. And so this became like a discourse thing. And Tatum kind of alluded to that too. He kind of said like, I recognize that this is where, this is kind of what happens when there's a huge break in between games in the regular season and the Eastern Conference Finals and the finals. And so, yeah, I think everyone's just ready to get started. We've all been like tweeting a bunch and doing, how many preview episodes have you seen? How many podcasts previewing the, Mavericks and the Celtics finals have you seen? I think we're running out of stuff to talk about and speculate. And, everybody wants to see Porziņģis play on the court, right? Not just like my grainy highlights on Twitter or like his unclear statement, right? So there's a lot of anticipation here from me and a lot of people that I'm friends with here. It's our first time covering the finals. So it's just like happy to be here, I guess. Just picking up my credentials yesterday. If you lose your credentials, I don't know that you can get another pair. So I've been really careful and kind of anxious about not losing that. So I have my credentials right here. And that's your ticket to games 1 and 2. And then you do it again in Dallas. So yeah, super excited. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I see we have about 550 people on so far, which I'm very grateful for. And I hopefully I can get through some questions and just people have things they want to hear about. I'm happy to just talk about that. Prediction for tonight. I always say my prediction to everybody on the beat. And I've been right like every game so far. Like genuinely, the 2 game 2s that they lost, I knew they were going to lose. I could just feel it. So I don't want to jinx it. I do think they're going to win tonight. I'm going to say, I don't sports bet. I'm going to say Celtics by 10. That would be my guess. I think it's going to be pretty close. And then maybe they pull away in the 4th. And then the Mavericks have a little bit of a run, make it close, and then they pull away. That's my prediction for tonight. Totally just based off my intuition. So it doesn't mean anything. You shouldn't listen to it. But I haven't been wrong. That's all I'll say. Expectations of the crowd. I think it's going to be like crazy here. I think it's going to be insane. It hasn't been insane the entire playoff run. I think it was some of the close games, like obviously versus Indiana when Jaylen Brown had that shot. It was an insane atmosphere. But what I mean by an insane crowd is like you need it to be nonstop around the clock, like from tip off to the end. You want it to be loud, right? Like even when things aren't going well, that's part of the crowd being loud. And I think for now, up until this moment, there was this sentiment of like, we're just trying to get to the finals. We just want to get here. And that's when the fans are actually celebrating. Like people that I'm friends with, like not from here, they're really excited about the Celtics. Whereas throughout this playoff run, I think there was this feeling of, I don't know, this was obvious. Like obviously we're going to be in the first round. Obviously we're going to be in the second round. Obviously we're going to make the conference finals. This was the only thing that like, we don't know who's going to win this round. I think that's the Celtics fan base's feeling. And it's probably not the best outlook because you can't take that for granted, right? Like only 2 teams get to be in this point. I had the Nuggets getting to this point. Obviously they didn't get to this point, right? So to me, it's very exciting that they're in this space. I think that there's a palpable excitement in the city. And I think the fans are going to be loud from the jump. I'll tweet out like how it's feeling in there. I'm curious to see how like excited they are about Kyrie and how dedicated they are to booing him and where that goes. I think that's a little bit of a question. I will say during the regular season game, I was here covering that one, and it was really like they never let go. I was pretty shocked because my first year covering the Celtics, right? And so I was like, I assume by now that the fans would not have that same level of enthusiasm and engagement for booing him every single time he touched the ball. But it literally never wavered. And so it's definitely not going to waver tonight. I just hope that it stays with like booing and nothing extracurricular happens, because it would really suck for that to become like the storyline or that, the narrative around this. And so I just hope that the game can play its, the basketball is the center of conversation at the end of the night and at the end of the series. I'll be at the Dallas for the away games. We're flying down Monday night. So there's media availability on Tuesday, and then they play Wednesday and Friday, and then I'll be back here on Saturday. So covering everything. Won't miss one thing, actually. We actually just bought new flights because we misunderstood the schedule the first time around, a couple of the reporters. And so we decided that $200 more was worth not missing anything en route to this championship. So we'll be there Monday night. I got this question so many times about who gives the best interviews and who just seems like really cool off camera. So I'd love to answer this question because I really pay attention to this stuff because I just think it's interesting to see what people's personalities are like and what just kind of the general vibe is outside of like when there's a podium presser, right? Because that's one thing, and you're media trained and obviously you're following a certain level of instruction. And so my big surprise, I would say, was Xavier Tillman. He is like so normal, and I've heard he wants to be a broadcaster, so maybe that's like part of he's very extroverted and comfortable. But pretty much every time he answers a question, it's something that I want to post on Twitter. Like, he never just answers the question plainly. I don't know if you guys saw, I posted this, but Suichi from actually, no, it wasn't Suichi. Someone asked him about who the Celtics that he would want to sit with on the plane the least, like who that would be. And he like immediately goes into saying it's Luke Cornett. Luke Cornett doesn't shut up, basically. And I have 3 kids. I just want to take a nap. He's like cracking jokes. He's telling stories. So like he's just, some people might have been like, oh, I don't know. Like I like everybody, which is fine. That's a valid answer. But he always has like a funny story to tell. So, the first time I met him was at a community event soon after he was traded to Boston. And we were interviewing him, and I was like, we could go on forever. Like, this guy was cracking us up. He was laughing. He seemed to be enjoying it. I think like that whole thing is that whole idea of just talking to the media as friends takes the load off a little bit, which I get why they don't. I probably wouldn't either, but he definitely is one of those people that has just like a very light energy about him. And then I really I love interviewing Derek White just because I think he also is super authentic. Like he's obviously he's not that media, he's not like a media PR trained person that comes off like something super calculated. I think he comes off super authentically, and he's just very friendly. Like around when you ever bump into him, he's always someone that says hi, how are you doing? Like that's just kind of his general demeanor. So those are 2 guys that have stood out to me just from covering the team. And then Jordan Walsh, I got to give a shout out to Jordan Walsh. I've interviewed Jordan Walsh like a bunch of times because I spent a lot of time in Maine this year. So he was there for a lot of the season. He's like the nicest guy. I think when he gets to be actually in front of the camera more, everybody's going to fall in love with him. Like the whole city's going to fall in love with him because every time he gets a question asked, every time he is talking about being on the team or his growth, he's super reflective. He's always down to share a story. He's always laughing, always smiling. So those 3, I would say, are probably my favorite people to interview. And then Luke is great too. Like Luke, just like seeing him around, he's like always cracking jokes. I mean, that's what Xavier Tillman was talking about, right? So those would be my 3. I see people are holding me to a 10-point victory. About the crowd, I just see a couple more comments about that. I will say, like, the crowd was great in 2022, but I was here in Game 6, and yes, it's hard to like keep enthusiasm when you just experienced a 20-0 lead run, which was what happened in Game 6. I remember that very vividly. I was sitting in the balcony with my brother, just shelled out like a bunch of money, so I was super bummed. But I think the crowd needs to be a little bit more engaged when things don't go well. Like, that's the key. And I do see like Minnesota Timberwolves, they were getting blown out Game 5. They were about to be eliminated. And that fan base was still engaged. Like it really stuck out to me, even just from seeing it on TV. So I don't think anybody that's going to be at the game is listening to this, but if you know people going, you gotta tune in. You gotta stay engaged, kind of stay optimistic throughout, because it can't just be when things are going well. Like, you gotta, every time something good happens, the crowd needs to get excited. So I mean, not to lecture the Boston Celtics crowd, but that's my hope as someone who is at all these games. Will I condemn the Celtics? I don't know what that means. Definitely not.
Don't condemn the Celtics.
I don't know what that means. What do you make of people overlooking defense and the discourse surrounding? Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. I think that there's just this general disconnect between evaluating a player and evaluating. Sorry, I'm going to get better at saying the question that I'm answering, because when I rewatched it yesterday, I realized it was super unclear. So Dylan here asked, what do you make of people overlooking defense and the discourse surrounding star players? JB and JT are somewhat unique because they're incredible scorers and defenders/rebounders. Yeah, this is, I forgot. I can pin the question that I'm answering. That's great. So that's what I'm going to do. Wow, this changes everything. I don't know why I wasn't doing this before. So I think, yeah, people generally just look at defense. just look at offense, and they really don't think about all ends of the court. And so when you're looking at like who makes the All-Star team, it's just like looking at point totals. And Jaylen Brown has talked about this a lot this year. Like he has really made this a point to say, like, I'm a two-way player. A lot of times you don't think about two-way players. I think there are players like Tyrese Halliburton that were like, he was like the leading vote getter for All-Star, All-NBA, and he's a really bad defender. And I love Tyrese Halliburton. I think he's like awesome to watch. I think he's going to be a superstar. But if you watch him on defense, like he's a really bad defender. And so how do you excuse that without thinking about the fact that this is a two-way game? That's kind of my qualm with the way we evaluate players. And I think that rewarding guys like Jaylen Brown, it shows you that you're evaluating both ends of the floor, because he's been a great defender this year. Drew Holiday, Derek White. I mean, it's a team full of two-way players. That's why they are in the finals. That's why they're probably going to win the championship. Let's look. You wanted to. Backup centers are beefing. Oh, Xavier Tillman and Luke. No, I think they're friends. Actually, every time Luke is asked about Xavier Tillman, he is like, he's a great guy. Like, we love him. Like, he's been asked, like, are you competitive with, like, when he got here? Like, were you worried about your own minutes? Sorry, I'm still a little bit of an amateur with StreamYard. I need to unpin this question. This is the thing. I need it up now. I'm going to get good at this. Eventually, you'll see I'm going to have all the right comments up when I'm talking about them. It's a funny comment. And I don't think it would be funny. It's one of the things I realized this year is that this Celtics team, like, nobody ever has given us anything to work with as far as, like, beef. Like, they're always just, like, hyping each other up, complimenting each other. The guys that don't play. I asked Shea Brissett yesterday, like, was it hard at all to see Delano Banton and Lamar Stevens get a better opportunity and, like, or not a bigger opportunity once they got traded and get all these minutes? And he was like, nah, I was so happy for him. And I'm so happy for myself. And, like, that's just been their overall vibe. Whether that's, like, they're really PR train or not, like, I think it's part of why they get negative coverage sometimes is because people are just bored because there's, like, no controversy. Like, it's been just smooth sailing, like, literally all year. Could Walshy be in the rotation next year? I don't know. I think he still has some, like, he still needs to be a little bit more polished. Like, I watched a lot of Maine, as I said, and he's a pretty raw player still, but he plays his role well, and that's the same role that he's going to have in Boston. So I wouldn't be shocked if he spends more time in Boston. I don't think he's going to be in Maine all year next year again. He's still like 19 or 12. Yeah, I think he's 19 still. But I don't know that he's going to be like playing real minutes because they are still focused on his development. And I think in the scheme of things, he's still very young and he's still, next year will just be his second year with the team. I think they're still going to view it as more of a developmental year than a contribution year. But who knows? People come back from the offseason sometimes totally different, right? I thought it was funny. Xavier Tillman yesterday was talking about how he walks into the gym and he just windmill dunks, no warm up, nothing. And Tillman, who is like also actually 25, sometimes he was talking like he was like 50. It was so funny. He was like, I have to do like all these stretches before I can even like stand. But yeah, he's clearly, athletically, he's like totally gifted and phenomenal. And that's kind of like one of his upsides. And besides being a guy who I think is like just a great fit culturally. Tillman said Walsh can ball hard. How do we stop Doncic? If we do, is the finals over? I would say so. Yeah, I think if Luka struggles the series, this one's not going to go well for Dallas. Absolutely. So the question is, I don't think you stop him. I think you just make life hard for him, and then you hope that he misses the hard shots. And if he doesn't miss the hard shots, I think there's no stopping him. Which is the same thing as Kyrie. I think it's the same thing as a lot of stars. It's why, like Kevin Durant says, when he misses shots, it's not him missing. It's not the defender making him miss. It's him missing on his own. Like I heard him say that once like years ago, and that really changed the way I viewed basketball because I realized like certain guys, they're being forced to miss. Other guys are just having a bad night all on their own, and it's really not about the defense. And I'm just going to pause and say, really appreciate there's about 1,000 people watching right now. I see the vast majority of you are watching on Twitter. So I'm going to say subscribe to my YouTube channel, Noa Dalzell NBA. And then you can be in the chat and you can join the chat. You can watch on Twitter too, but if you join the YouTube channel, then I can see your comments. And then you'll get notifications for my future videos. Also, I want to have people on my YouTube channel so I can have extra content. I'll be posting like behind the scenes things eventually, all sorts of things. So if you're watching on Twitter right now, or I always swear, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Highly recommend it. It has 2 videos right now, so there's not a lot going on yet, but there will be. So the tickets. Yeah, it's gonna be also traffic is crazy. So if someone here does have tickets, I would leave like right now, even though it's still a ways away. It took me like 40 minutes to get here, and I live a mile away. Should not have gotten in a car. I would not be surprised if the Mavericks came out on a hot start and the Celtics came out a little slow. Just feeling. I don't know why. They usually come. The Celtics have been so good to start games this year, right? So there's not really a real reason to think that. But don't freak out if they start slow. Just don't freak out in general. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy. It's game 1 of the NBA Finals. There's plenty of time to go. Even if they lose this game, it's not the end of the world. Like, if they lose both games, then you can freak out. But if they lose just the first game, stay positive. I interviewed Brad Stevens. I've not interviewed him. I've been at pressers that he's spoken at. I've never asked him a question, actually. He's on the list. I have a list in my head of like who I've never asked a question to, and he's on it. And he seems like a great guy. I'd love to ask him a question eventually. Did I see KP at practice? So KP practiced yesterday. There was 30 minutes that were open to the media. It was like laughably unserious, the 30 minutes that I watched. It was like they were warming up. I was thinking to myself, I played basketball growing up. If I ever warmed up the way they were warming up yesterday, my coaches would have been like, get on the line. Because they weren't even doing stretches correctly. Like half of them weren't stretching. Half of them were doing dribbling off in the corner. It's because they wasn't a serious practice. So the reason I say this is because I've gotten a million questions of people asking me, how does KP look? And the reality is that is this your stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I can move. I was trying to find a good spot. Okay. But yeah, so the reason I say it is I don't have much insight on how he's actually looking laterally. I think the Celtics posted a short clip of him playing defense. And then outside of that, we've just been seeing him shoot around. He looks good shooting around. I think he scrimmaged multiple times. Like if I had watched that scrimmage, I would do a 2-hour show about what I saw in that scrimmage, but there was no media access to that. Have I heard anything about Al Horford retiring? There are people that have tried to convince me that Al Horford is going to retire if they win. I don't think he's retiring either way. I think we're really fixated on the idea that he's like old and that he's going to retire and that's inevitable. But in reality, I really don't think that he's on the brink of that. I think he feels really young. I think he feels like he still has like more time, and physically he's really held up well. He hasn't had injuries. He hasn't had really anything this year. Like he has, I think we just want to say he's old because he's 38, but like he hasn't been playing that old. He's a starter on a finals team right now. That being said, his house is for sale. So I think that's where a lot of the rumors come from, that at least that I've heard, is that that's why he's moving. But his sister quote tweeted someone talking about his house being for sale and said, you guys totally like misunderstood this. Like that's not, like you guys don't know anything basically. So I'm going to assume that that's dispelling the rumor that Al Horford is selling his house because he's moving out of Boston. I also don't think that he'd be like planning his move already. I don't know. I think he'll be back next year. He has another year on his contract. Okay, I'm just looking through these. Does Hauser get going with threes? Hauser was talking yesterday. It was very endearing. He was talking about how he's been watching his old YouTube clips to get confidence again and just remember that that's the same guy that hit all those threes. And so he'll just literally open his phone, search Sam Hauser highlights, and just watch them. So that's how he's dealing with being in a bad shooting stretch. I would not be shocked, actually. I'm going to put it in. I'm going to make a prediction. I said I'm predicting Celtics by 10. I'm going to say Sam Hauser has at least 2 threes tonight. That's my other hot take. You can hold me to it. Does Kada break the rotation? I don't know. I really like watching him play. He looks like an NBA-ready player. I think so. I think he played a little bit during the regular season. I don't know if he makes the playoff rotation, but he might play like a little bit more consistently than this year. He took some good strides this year. I think they signed him to a multi-year contract because they do see him down the road as a future thing. Like I don't think he was just an insurance guy for this year. I don't think so. I don't think we're going to see O'Shea and Xavier Tillman unless something goes wrong with KP, which is possible, right? Like he's going to be coming back from injury that's very ambiguous, very unclear, exactly like how this is happening, exactly how he's, exactly what the situation is and how he's going to look. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty there, but if he's back, they're going to tighten that rotation. I think O'Shea and X were like really wild cards last round. I don't think they make it to the finals. But they were asked, O'Shea was asked yesterday, like, do you expect to play? He said, I don't know. Peyton Pritchard was asked what his minutes. He said, I really don't know, but everybody's maintained, like, I really trust Joe. So the party line is strong. They trust Joe. They're not worried about their individual minutes. You don't stop Luka, you stop everyone else. I absolutely agree. I think you have to limit the other guys. Like to me, it's the wide open dunks. You have to limit those. Yeah, so this is Drew Peterson, I assume. Yeah, I think Drew Peterson's another guy that's, he's on a two-way right now, so he's not eligible to play, but he said I talked to him about this. He said he's been watching Sam Hauser a lot, trying to see kind of what made his transition successful and hope that he can do a similar type of transition. And Sam Hauser's a much better shooter than him, so it's a little bit of a tough comparison, but I do think there's things that are fundamentally the same about them. I'm just relocating here so I'm not in people's way. We'll wrap this up in like 5 minutes because I'm going to go back to the court and I'll post like highlights and clips on my Twitter. So feel free to follow along. I'm behind in some of these comments. Appreciate the positive comments. I do appreciate it. I literally started doing this year, and I think the fact that people like to read the stuff I write or listen to me answering questions, I do very much appreciate it. So appreciate you guys following along. If there's ever things you are interested in, like you want to read a story about something, like I'm down to write about whatever or talk about whatever. So if there are particular things, always happy to. I know Jack Simone for Celtics blog did a really cool series on the assistant coaches. I thought that was a really cool thing, and the player development coaches. So if you guys are curious about a particular person on staff that you just like see around, like I'll look into it, talk to some people, write it. So very much happy to serve with fans. I'll do a personal question just because we'll wrap up soon. I followed the Celtics my whole life. So I grew up in Boston. I played basketball my whole life. My dad, who's on here, I'll give him a plug. He is. I used to say he's the second best shooter I've ever seen, and now that Sam Hauser's been struggling, he's been saying like, "Am I the best shooter you've ever seen?" But he was a professional basketball player overseas for like 15 years, and so I had like a jump start on being into basketball. And then I played my whole life. Started watching the Celtics, but I started watching the Celtics in 2009, which sucks because I've never seen them win a championship. Fingers crossed. But yeah, I think that was that experience of just being a fan and just following the team. I had my own Celtics website. I posted a clip from it the other day. BostonCelticsInfo.weebly.com. You can check it out. Lately, I've been getting a lot of views on it, so I think people are going on it to look because it's definitely not natural traffic. But yeah, last summer I applied for a writing position at Celtics blog, and that's literally how I started. And then since then, I've met other people and gotten involved in a bunch of other ways. But yeah, Celtics blog is how I got in, and it's where I write still. And I love Celtics blog. You guys should all check it out. It's like so much coverage. There's like 10 new articles a day. They're all very thorough. I think Jack's not behind me. At least I don't think so. No, Jack's not behind me. Yes, I get this question a lot. I was very much a fan. And I definitely think I'm less of a fan now because you're a reporter, but we're excited to be here. Yes, my prediction, Sam Hauser gets out of a shooting slump. There's a bunch more questions. I'm not going to be able to catch up on all these. I agree with this, Terrence. I think the Celtics are it's just weird because they're not like one of those like one seeds that was like barely a one seed. Like they were a very dominant one seed, and I was shocked that the ESPN predictions today was nine people predicted of the analysts. 9 people predicted the Celtics will lose, and 8 people nine had the Mavs, 8 had the Celtics, which is the first series that the Celtics were not favored in, which I like because I feel like there's always a jinx that it's like the Celtics are going to win and then they don't win. So let's try something different this year. They're not favored. I still think it's kind of surprising because they've been so dominant, and then they're 12-2 in this playoff run. But I wrote about it today for Celtics blog about Jason Tatum and the disrespect and all that. I think it's just living in the shadow of 2022. Like, to me, that's what this is all about. It's until they win a championship, people can't get over what happened in 2022 with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I mean, most Tatum, and I think it's totally impacted the way that they're viewed, the way that they're covered, the way that they're discussed. Okay, I'm going to do like one more question. I'm just scrolling through here. A good spot will come. Yeah, I'm not going to ever do this from the press room again because now it's like full of people. People are about to eat their food. I'm in the dining room, so it's almost feels kind of rude that I'm like doing this. So, this is an easy one. There usually are like 20 people covering the Celtics, and there's like 1,000 now. So it's completely different. And I know everybody. No, I don't even see one person I recognize right now. So it makes it's cool because sometimes you like look at other people's name tag and you're like, oh, that's a famous writer that I've seen my whole life, or that's like Kendrick Perkins or people you see on TV. So it makes it's an exciting element to it, but it's just a little more complicated as far as like figuring out where to go. Normally I would know exactly where to go, or I don't even know where my seat is. I didn't even see SB Nation listed on the seating chart. So me and Jack, who are both for SB Nation, we have to figure that out. I'm not worried because once I'm in here, I'll figure it out. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I do always post players' pregame routine. I think it's cool that everybody has a different one. I when I played like seriously more, like in high school and stuff, I used to be a very rigorous warmer upper. Now I feel like when I play pickup or like I play in like a Monday night league, I'm always late to every game, and so I don't have time to do anything. I literally will just like my first shot will be like right as the game's starting. So if my dad's here, he's a big warmer upper. This has to be a better way to say that, but he's big into warming up. Okay. That's a long wait. That's a long wait. Yeah. I mean, I feel like if they had it done this year, that's a fair wait. You know, like it's not too much. Because they've been close really a lot of times too, which is part of the fun. I wish people enjoyed like the process as well, not just the outcome. Like I've been having a blast covering this team and following this playoff run, and it seems like a lot of people aren't having fun. And to me, it's like they've been really fun to watch. Last year was tough, the playoffs. They were like on the brink of elimination the whole time. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up because there's a bunch of people arriving, and I'm gonna go on the court and post stuff. But yeah, really appreciate the time. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Shout out to my dad if he's here. I was gonna pin that. You guys can follow him on Twitter. I quote tweeted him today, and then I saw he had 20 followers. I have no idea how people decided to follow him, but feel free to give him a follow. And yeah, I'll wrap it up here, and we'll be going live again tomorrow from home because there's no media availability tomorrow. Cool. Thanks everyone. Have a good one. Good luck. Enjoy the game.